So we're going to revisit this stop and auto restart project again. And because I found the timer relay that I was looking for from the beginning, why I couldn't find it in the original videos, I don't know, because I've seen these decades ago. And I can't remember if they work exactly like this one does, but there were timer relays around. So why I couldn't find this when I was trying to do the project originally, I have no idea. But when I was doing the 555 relay video, then I found this one. And I was like, oh, I bet this is what I'm looking for. I actually bought it for something else, and when I started playing with it, I was like, oh, this is the relay you need if you want to do this type of project. So we'll go over how to wire it. You can see the top terminal there. It'll take 3 to 24 volts. That's your trigger. So we have it hooked to a reed switch. So every time the reed switch closes, it'll send voltage to there, and then that's when it activates the relay. The next one down is the ground for that circuit. The one that has anything there, that's a low trigger. I didn't research that at all. So the next one, you need power to power this, and this thing will be powered by 6 to 30 volts. So that's kind of convenient. I'm using 12 volts. And then you need ground there also. And you see my grounds just go to a junction. So that's the power to get the whole relay working. If you flip it over, then you'll see the triggers, and it'll show you the high, the ground, and the low. The other side, the relay side, the center is your common. So I'm using positive to turn my motor on and off. So I put a positive wire there on the center terminal. And the normally open, that's if you were going to turn something on. In this video, we're turning something off. So you would put your motor wire there if you were trying to turn it on when something triggered it. And this is the side we're using, the normally closed, because we want the motor to run until we get the trigger signal, and then we'll change the state of the relay. So that's what you want to turn something off. You use this side. Okay, now we're going to wire it. So I'm taking the positive from the motor and I'm putting it to the normally closed side of the relay. So it'll run until the relay is triggered, and then it opens. The negative side of the motor, it goes to the negative junction. I put the positive from the junction to the common of the relay. Then we have to power this whole thing, so that goes to the positive there, and then to the junction. Then so I didn't have to rewire everything, I just put a little jumper on there. So that's the positive in to the reed switch. The positive out of the reed switch goes to our high side trigger. Then we need the ground side to power the whole thing, so that goes to the ground junction. And then we need a ground for the trigger. So that goes to the junction there also. And this is the motor without the brake. So we see in P2, it's working because that magnet is clearing the reed switch. Now this is the motor with the brake. So you see P2 will not work smoothly. It picks up that second trigger when the magnet just barely starts to move. So we're going to switch it to 3. I think the one you would actually use in this project is P1. We'll go over that here later. But you see, if I change it to P3, then the motor with the brake, it'll work. So it works on P3, but P3 is designed a little bit differently. This is a close-up of the magnet and the motor with the brake. I've showed this before in the last video, but it's just a close-up how you can see that that reed switch will still be closed when the motor stops. And so here's a close-up of the verbiage on the relay, and it says it's 10 amp. And of course the documentation says something different. So here it says it's 5 amp. So I believe the relay itself, my project doesn't use very many amps at all. And I mention that because I've bought relays on Amazon before and put them in projects, and they only lasted a month with not even a lot of usage. So I've made my own little boards. They're not a big deal, but I just needed a basic relay. And I'll link that video in the description. I'll put some other links in there too where to get this board. So here I just set up a couple of LEDs, one on the normally closed, one on the normally open. We'll play around with this a little bit so you can see P1. If you trigger it, it'll stop the motor. So green, the motor is moving, red, the motor's stopped. So if I re-trigger it, it stays stopped. And then if I hold the trigger, it'll time out. And then you can see that's the magnet moving. So P1 is probably our best bet for this project. So now we're going to set it to P2. We'll play around with the trigger here a little bit. We trigger it, it times out. If I trigger it and I trigger it again, it starts the timer over. So see, every time I trigger it, it'll start the timer over. And if I hold the trigger, seems to work okay, but it'll get triggered again with the motor with the brake. So here, if you do a long press on the set button, that puts you into the program mode, and then short presses on the set will get you through the different modes, the different timers. Then you just have your up and down keys. And then a long press will put you back in out of programming. And so I didn't do the long trigger on this one, but we saw it in the video with the motor actually working. So, but this one doesn't work exactly the way you'd want it to, even though it worked in the project. So it looks like there's a little delay in between triggering it. So now we'll go to 4. 4 has a delay when you trigger it, and then it'll activate the relay. So CL is a delay that it's going to change state after that delay, and then it changes back. And it looks like it's looping there also. I didn't play around with a lot of the looping ones. I think we'll do something on 6 and show how the loop stuff works. 5 I didn't play around with too much. It turns on, then it'll turn off and it'll loop. Some say they turn off when you trigger it again, but you could see that I was triggering that one and it didn't turn off, it just kept looping. So I don't know if there's another setting there. Once again, I didn't play around with 5 too much. So it looks like 5 and 6 are how they start are opposite. So you can see 6 is just looping back and forth. Even if you re-trigger it, it just stays into the loop. And And so here we're going to go set the loop. So you do a long press, short press on set. I just even out the time, then you can see LP for the loop, and then you can set it how many times you want it to loop. Then it'll do the loop 2 times. And then so 7 says signal hold function. If there's a trigger signal, the timing will reset and the relay keeps on. When the signal disappears after timing time OP, relay will turn off. During timing, if the relay gets a signal again, timing will reset. So I don't know that I was able to reproduce that. I went back and played with it a little bit, and basically if the reed switch stays closed, the timer won't run, is basically what happens. And once the reed switch is open, then the timer runs. So I'm not too sure about this one. But once again, I was just focused on the project. I just wanted to show you that this thing did have other functions. So I don't know why it took so long to find that relay. I'm sure it was around, but doing all the internet searches early on, either I misunderstood the description or they weren't popping up in my searches. I'm not sure what happened there, but that's the easy way to do that project. And I knew it was out there because I had seen it before and just couldn't find it. So anyways, you got a lot of different options, and thanks for watching.